Watching live now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. I am joined by David DiPietro. He is a medical malpractice and personal injury attorney. We appreciate you, David, for coming here on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk about this story that's really been circulating online, really a nightmare for a couple that went through IVF, which we know is very expensive, takes a lot of time, and there was enough of a mix-up to where they birthed a child that wasn't theirs, this couple in California. How common is this?
This is very uncommon. You see a lot of common type medical malpractice cases similar, like where a surgery is done on the wrong side of the body or something to that effect, or the wrong patient received the wrong procedure. But receiving the wrong embryo, this is a 1 in a million. I've never seen it before, and it's really a incredible case.
Okay, so there was two couples who were obviously involved in this, and one of the embryos got mixed up with one of the other embryos. And so now there's two couples with what really is the wrong child. So what is the future for both of these couples in this case?
You know, factually, it turned out okay in the sense that they both had a child and they both had a girl. So it was a matter of them now exchanging children, although that, albeit being very dramatic. But imagine if the situation was different, where one didn't have a child or one had a boy, and there was a difference in the factual scenario that we're presented with. But it actually worked out in a way that the two babies were about the same age and the same sex. But nonetheless, it's still very traumatic for the parents to have to go through this, becoming close to a child, giving birth to a child, and having to give it up, knowing that it's not your biological child. Very, very traumatic. Lots of pain, lots of suffering, lots of mental anguish with this kind of situation.
How does something like this happen? And now what does the fertility clinic face?
It's all about your policies and procedures. You have to have appropriate policies and procedures to make sure the patient you're dealing with is receiving the procedure that they're supposed to be receiving. This is every medical case. You make sure you have the right patient, they're receiving the right surgery on the right side of the body. Same here, right mother, right embryo, and receiving the embryo that's hers. It's all about doing a timeout, making sure that everything's in place and there's been proper protocols and chain of custody to make sure that this is the right embryo for the right mother. And if you don't have these protocols, this can happen. It's just the right policy was not in place that allowed this to happen.
Have you heard of anything like this happening at fertility clinics? It getting so mixed up to where it actually went through with the birth too?
I've never seen it before, but you can see how it can happen, because an embryo has no identification. It's only identified through however the IVF lab is identifying the embryo. So if that's mixed up, or you don't have the right policies to make sure that doesn't happen, it very likely could happen, because an embryo has no identification when you look at it. It's microscopic.
So what is this investigation probably going to likely look like?
This is, in the sense of, although the facts are different, this is a traditional medical malpractice case. This was the wrong procedure performed on the patient, and the patient has pain and suffering. And there's going to be some economic damages related to whatever the IVF clinic charged. But I think the bigger of the damages is going to be the pain, suffering, mental anguish for having to go through this traumatic event. And that's something the jury will put a value on. That's not something that we can quantify. The jury has the purview to figure out what is this worth, or what is it the value of somebody having to suffer this way.
I mean, IVF is becoming more and more popular these days. For someone who might be watching this right now, who is thinking about it or has gone through it themselves, do you have recommendations for ways they should go about it and know that they are getting the proper care?
Interview your physician. Ask your physician, how are you going to ensure that from the time you receive the embryo that it's going to be the correct embryo implanted in me? What policies and procedures do you have in place to make sure that this is the identifiable embryo that's mine, and that there won't be a mix-up or some sort of mistake that can cause this traumatic event?
You know, with this being in the national headlines, this fertility clinic, I can imagine, is suffering great damages on this. What could they be facing, possibly worst case and best case scenario?
I think there's going to be economic damages that could be large for the families that suffered this. But I think the political relations disaster of this being all over the internet and all over the media, I can't see this business surviving as a result of this, because this is a mess up of mammoth proportions that's now been reported out to the mainstream media. So I don't see this IVC clinic being able to maintain future clientele. This is one that is probably the death knell for it.
Yeah, sure. And not to mention, in both these cases, these children were raised for several months until they actually figured out and said, hey, this kid doesn't really look like me. I don't see a resemblance. Maybe we should go forth with that DNA test. So they caught it earlier than years down the line. So that's one thing that I found very interesting about this case. Anything else that you want to point out?
No, I think that's probably about it, other than this is I think a clear-cut case of medical malpractice. There really is no defenses. This is like performing surgery on the wrong patient. It's the same factually analogous case. It's indefensible. This is an indefensible case.
David, thank you so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.